Bobby Carver Show is back, and we're ready to go with a huge show for you today. My man Joshua Perry is going to be with me for the entire program. And coming up after this, we're going to give you the tease right now to lock you in. Quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes, former Kansas State Wildcat, Will Howard is going to be joining the show, talking a little bit about his experiences there, here, what that was like, how the transition's been going, and everything with it. We've got a huge June for the coaches at Ohio State. It's OV weekend. That means official visits. They're going to be aplenty. They've changed the calendar up. Now you can have all these official visits. Ohio State's going to be cranking them out for the next 3-4 weeks going through there. We've got our questions from our listeners. There's going to be some good ones that we'll hear in there as well. Joshua, we got our bets from Tipico. We got the Memorial Tournament in Columbus this week, a week later, but it's the official, unofficial start of summer, I guess, for most people. But we're going to start with some pretty cool news. A teammate of yours, and it's interesting how his legacy is ultimately going to be remembered now, especially 10 years out. The guy who won 2 silver footballs was probably in line to win a third for Big Ten Player of the Year. He is going to be inducted into the Ohio State Varsity Athletics Hall of Fame this year in 2024, and that is Braxton Miller. Joshua, you're about as close to this as anyone you're going to get. You guys are about the same age. He got redshirted, I think, finished up with you. Your kind of thoughts on this and thoughts on Braxton his entire career?
Well deserved, first off, for Braxton Miller. Like, I remember coming in 2012, that would have been his second year in the program. And I'm watching this cat practice, and I'm like, I've never seen somebody move like this. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it was like that every game day. And I can remember in 2012, we were a good football team, but certainly we weren't, at the championship level that Urban would have wanted. Braxton Miller was playing at that level, though, and I think that he bailed us out in a ton of moments. Fast forward to 2013, we had a historically bad defense that year. And if it wasn't for Braxton Miller and what he could do, whether it was throwing the football in, like, underrated as a passer, honestly, deep ball was always pretty good. Like, I don't think he got enough credit for throwing the football, but with his legs, he made magic all the time. And again, he bailed us out. Like, he allowed us to win some football games that we probably didn't deserve to win in 2013. That was an undefeated regular season for us. And then Braxton gets hurt. And, I think that's where kind of people let the legacy fade a little bit, because the year he's hurt is the year we win a national title. But I will tell you that every step of the way that season, Braxton was right there as a teammate, as a leader, as an encourager, as somebody who wanted to see us all do well, even when he was probably at his lowest moment in his career, rehabbing, trying to get back on the field. And then 15, he switches positions to wide receiver. And frankly, I don't know if he got utilized as best as he could have been, but we saw some phenomenal plays out of him. Captain that year, just the whole career, just ups and downs, but the highlights were as high as you can get. And frankly, I think we saw an evolution of a guy, too, who went from just being a great player to a great teammate by the end of his career. So this is a well-deserved honor.
How tough was it? Obviously, the national championship and then going from JT to Cardale, like, winning that and him not being a part of that on the field. I don't want to say does it diminish it, but it seems like that kind of glosses over the first 2 years. And I was there, I saw it with you, Josh, right? I know what the guy could do on the field, and he's as physically gifted as probably any player to ever walk through the Woody Hayes.
Yep.
But it almost seems like publicly 14 kind of whitewashes 12 and 13 a little bit.
It's really unfortunate. And like, again, I try to put this in perspective, and I was arguing with Jake Butt on Red Corner, Blue Corner, show we do on Stadium. We're talking about the quarterbacks, JJ McCarthy versus Braxton Miller. And it's like, stylistically, two very different guys. Braxton comes in as a freshman, is expected to play in a situation where most guys probably, either they redshirt or they just, they're backing up. But he was in some big moments. It ends up being, I believe, freshman of the year in the Big Ten. And then the next year, it's literally like best player in the conference for 2 years in a row. And I understand the gravity and the magnitude of winning a championship. But for me, having been around him and having witnessed what he did, it's really hard to forget that he was the best player in the Big Ten for you probably convinced me, 2.5 seasons there when he was playing quarterback. And what's really unfortunate is I believe that he was on a Heisman track. I think that he was a guy who would have won a Heisman trophy had he been healthy for the duration of his career. That's how good he is. So, yeah, like the championship, of course, people are kind of like, where was Braxton? Like that's a really sad part of the story. I'm not going to let people forget how freaking good that dude was.
Absolutely tremendous. And then, follow that up. It was almost the Labor Day spin move in Blacksburg. I almost feel like that did more to hurt him than help him because it set up like an unrealistic expectation to where a guy had played quarterback his entire year. We're going to put him as this hybrid kind of Percy Harvin esque slot receiver, running back. And he does that. And it seems like, hey, this guy should be Reggie Bush now each and every week, which is almost unfair coming off an injury and a guy that had never played another position than quarterback.
And let's be perfectly clear too. The coordinator situation heading into 15 was in flux, right? And the quarterback situation, in Urban's talked about this, but you know, I think that he found it to be a real conundrum to the point where we didn't really know who the starting quarterback was until we were out there in Blacksburg. And so you're asking a guy to transition to wide receiver with all of these changes that are going on. And certainly that set the bar extremely high, but it kind of gets back to that point of not exactly sure he fit into the offense as best as possible. And that's the sad part is I think if we would have saw him at wide receiver in Tom Herman's offense with a little bit more of a defined quarterback role, we could be talking about an all Big Ten wide receiver. I mean, the guy was a third round pick after 1 year of playing wideout. I think everybody knew what the potential was. We just didn't get to see it, unfortunately.
Absolutely. His athleticism, his ability to move with a football in his hand, unparalleled. One of the great plays in Buckeye history of all time that I'll remember the Hail Mary against Wisconsin, I
Yeah,
believe,
man.
was that to Devin Smith, I want to
Yep.
say. Yeah, which, beat a very good Wisconsin team led by Russell Wilson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And, that'll go down as one of the all-time great plays.
I was
In
at
your
that
opinion,
game as a senior in high school. And
okay,
I
yeah,
was like, I got to be a part of this. That was a tough year too. But just even seeing that and the belief in Braxton, who was a freshman, Devin, who was a freshman, it's like, we got to be a part of that.
absolutely. And then finally, before we get out, who do you think out of that, we'll call it that, 12 to 15 bucket there, Urban's first, 4 years, who should be the next player to get inducted in your mind?
There's a guy who I've been having some conversations about as well, named Ezekiel Elliott, who had back-to-back 1,800-yard rushing seasons, who gave us 220 plus yards in the three most important games of 2014, back to back to back. I mean, the senior year or the junior year for him, my senior year was ridiculous. He had 5 200-yard rushing games as a Buckeye. I think that ties one of the Heisman winners. I can't remember if it was Archie or Eddie George, but induct him. The dude was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if he stays for his fourth year, I think he safe to say crushes all of Archie's records. And not a
Yeah.
knock on Arch, I mean, but he was
No.
so incredibly good and still ascending at that point. And you mentioned the 3-game run in 14 is probably the best 3-game running back run that you'll ever see in Ohio State history. And it's a pretty robust history for any college. So I think agree with that. You can look at probably Joey Bosa going in there as well after that. And
Yeah.
there's a number of guys I think from that run that'll be in there with the success that your class and that group right above and below you ultimately had. But moving forward here, we've got a new quarterback who transferred in from Kansas State in Columbus, Ohio. How's he integrating into the system? How's he feeling this thing out? What's it going like with him? Well, we'll find out next as we talk to Will Howard here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And now we are pleased to welcome in one of the newest members of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Got here, obviously, at the start of the 2024 calendar year after the season. Transferred in from Kansas State. Pleased to welcome in Will Howard. And Will, I think everybody wants to know, as you've been here, what's this process been like? You're about 6 months, 5 months in to this offseason training. You got spring ball now back into the summer. And how have you kind of integrated into the system with everybody?
Yeah, man. No, it's been awesome. It's been a really, really smooth transition. When I first got here, my head was spinning a little bit, and obviously being in the same place for 4 years, doing things the same way, you get into a little bit of a routine. But I was excited, man. I knew that come here was a huge opportunity for me, and the guys really embraced me when I came in and took me in, and now it's now that after I got through that first semester, now I really feel like I'm pretty well ingrained in with the team, and that spring ball really helped me a lot. But it was definitely a learning experience a little bit, especially through the first 4 to 5 practices. I would say, I've played a lot of football, I've done a lot of things, but just figuring out how Coach Day, how Coach Kelly coach me, how they want to do things, how I feel myself fitting into this offense. Honestly, coming out of spring ball, felt like I wanted to have more practices. I felt like I just wanted to get more reps towards the end of it. But it's been really good. I feel great now. I've been hanging out with the guys a ton, and I mean this group is really close knit, and we had a team cookout yesterday. It's been really fun.
You can see that obviously the closest of this group, and that's one of the things that I think is pretty unique about Ohio State, and it's great to see you kind of feeling that a little bit. And I was talking to Ryan last week, and he was talking about your decision and some of the guys and in the portal added a handful of players this year. You were kind of unique because you were at the end of your career at Kansas State, transferred to another school was an option. NFL was also potentially an option. Entering the draft, kind of what went into that decision for you, and how did you end up settling on Ohio State?
I mean, yeah, coming out of last year, if you were to ask me going into the season that my fourth year at Kansas State, the plan was to have my best year yet, go to the league, and hopefully be in the first to second day, kind of consideration. But coming out of last year, I had a good year. It was solid. It wasn't as good as maybe I wanted it to be. I felt like I kind of left some stuff out there. So I felt like, coming out of the season, I was really like a third to sixth round projection. It was kind of those mid rounds. So it was kind of, up in the air. I ended up getting a Senior Bowl invite late in the window. But I decided that it would probably be best to put my name in the transfer portal, see if there was an opportunity out there to put my name into, a place where I could get myself into a better draft position. And ultimately that was the biggest goal for me, is my plan at the next level is to be a starting quarterback in the NFL and play for as long as I can. And I realized that to be an NFL starting quarterback is coming out as a fourth round draft pick, that it happens sometimes, and you see the Brock Purdy's, the Kirk Cousins, you see those. But it's rare. And to give myself the best chance to go as far as I want to go in this, I felt like I needed to go somewhere to give me a chance to elevate my draft stock and compete for a national championship. And there was no better place than Ohio State. It was when it really came down to it. There was a couple other schools, Miami and USC, but it was Ohio State was the only one that I saw myself really going to before going to the draft. So when it came down to it, it truly was between here and going to the draft. I was pretty close to doing that, and there was probably a lot of people that were telling me that I should go out and just I'm healthy now, but I had this feeling inside of me that I wasn't done yet, and that I had more to accomplish at this level. And especially when when Coach Day came to me, and when this opportunity came across my plate, I was like, man, I can't pass this up. So I got up here, and it was everything I imagined it was going to be. I already kind of knew in my head that this is where I wanted to be, and it all lined up perfectly, and here we are. And I haven't regretted my decision for a second.
It certainly feels like you're in the right spot at Ohio State now. I spoke to Coach Kleiman last offseason, and everybody's got a different identity to their program, right? Like coming from
Right.
Kansas State, I'm certain that they did things differently than what you've experienced at Ohio State. As you start to assess your time in Columbus, what have been the biggest differences between where you were and where you're at right now, just in terms of a program perspective?
Yeah, from a program perspective, coming in here, I didn't really know what to expect. And obviously I'd heard a lot of things about Ohio State and the culture that that was around this place, and I knew it was very well solidified, but I hadn't seen it for myself yet. And coming from a place like Kansas State, where we kind of we're a bunch of guys who were 2 and 3 stars, and we were definitely didn't have as much talent as guys. We won a Big 12 championship in 2022, and probably didn't have the best talent in the Big 12. We probably weren't the most talented roster, but we won it because of our culture and because of how tightly knit we were and how disciplined we were. And those were all the things that we kind of prided ourselves on. So coming here where there's a bunch of 5 stars and 4 stars and these guys that have amazing amounts of talent, I wasn't really sure. I was like, here we go. I we'll see, if there's some egos on the team or anything like that. And I came in, man, and I was so impressed with just the quality of the guys, the quality of the locker room, how closely knit everyone was. Like we were talking about earlier, like, I mean, this team is like very similar to what I was experiencing at Kansas State. And, the reason that we won games there was because of all those intangible things that, being closely knit, being disciplined, being, committed, working harder than everyone. But I've seen that here. We work harder here than we did at K-State, and that was why we won games, and it's crazy. Like it's just everything's kind of everything. Like I said, what I've said since I've gotten here is everything is just more. There's more of everything, and it's been exciting. It's a step up to the pros for me. It's almost like I'm in the semi pros is kind of how I'm looking at it.
It doesn't get much tougher than a guy like Mickey Marotti, especially in the offseason. With what he's doing. Joshua, he coached him back when he first got here. And what has that experience been like with him going through the weight room? You're talking about that step up, the competitive excellence all the time, the winner loser. And then, also with that, a guy who we're very familiar with here, my guy, Anthony Schlegel, who also coached Joshua and played with me. I saw him working with you a little bit last week. What's that been like as well?
Man, Schlegs is awesome. He's always bringing the juice. And hey, you're out there. The other day we're doing we're going through the bags and I was in the front of the line and I heard somebody, I think it was Trey, calling somebody back, and they were like, "Hey, Bobby, come back and do the other bags again." I was like, "Do we have a freshman named Bobby? Like, what do we have over?" And it's you, and they made you go back and do them over again. It was awesome. Hey, holding everybody accountable. But no, Coach Mick's been so good, and he's a perfect mesh of pushing you, but also being able to relate to you and be close to you. And we have so much fun in that weight room, and the juice in there is awesome. And I think, with all the competitive stuff that we've been doing is like, it's really, it makes it fun, and it makes us so much better. It's been really fun to just be around in there.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. So I want to talk a little bit about the dynamics in the quarterback room, working with Coach Day, the offense with Chip, and how all of those things are evolving. So we'll dive into that with our guy Will here right after this break. Welcome back into the show. And during the break, I had to listen to Joshua talk about me doing mat drills back in 2012 and 13 and Will kind of piling on. But hey, you know what? Like, time is undefeated. You get older, you can't move as well. And I've had to kind of scale back a little bit of what I'm doing. I'll tell Joshua the story afterwards about Trey calling me back. And I'm always a +2 guy, Joshua. You know that. So it wasn't a lack of effort. It was maybe a misunderstanding on the execution on my part, and the brotherhood holding me accountable. So glad that they were there to do that. And, when you're called upon, if you're going to be in it, you're in it all the way. You can't put your toe in. So I had to go back to the front of the line. But you mentioned coming here, Will, and talking about, like finishing school. And now that you've got a chance to spend some time with Ryan, people talk about him as this very, very talented quarterback developer, and getting a chance to work with him. And I know spring was a little disjointed because he was with the running back some, but what has that been like? And what makes him, unique and special as a quarterback's coach?
I think the thing that makes him such a good coach is how intense he is and how high of a level he holds us to. I've never been coached this hard in football in my life. I've always been blessed with, a pretty good amount of knowledge of the game, and I felt like I've always, been able to process things pretty well. And my coaches have trusted me to make decisions and kind of get a little loose with my footwork and do things that I liked sometimes more than, more just coaching me. And Coach Day, thing about Coach Day is that he wants things his way. And the thing is that most of the time his way is right, so, and I think the cool thing about it is, having him and Coach Kelly both, coaching us has been really good. And they kind of balance each other out really well. Coach Kelly's he's not going to come over and yell and scream at you and jump all in you. But, Coach Day is going to do that. they kind of cancel each other, and then Coach Kelly will, they kind of cancel each other out in that way a little bit. But having two of some of the best quarterback minds in college football, and just football minds in college football, offensive minds, being able to coach me, and me being able to just get that kind of coaching every single day has helped me so much. Like, I feel like right now, even I'm a completely different player than I was even in spring ball. Just some of the things that I've tweaked since I coming out of that, and learning from it. And I think I'm looking forward to really stepping up my game coming into the fall.
All right, so take me through the offseason of a quarterback, right? And Bobby and I have talked to other players here. This is the time of year where you get a little bit more time to yourself, and certainly use it on team building, spend a little bit more time away from the Woody. But, how often are you in the film room breaking down tape? How often are you throwing with the guys? Like, what is the offseason like for the quarterback?
Yeah, it like you said, it's on us, and that's I think the thing that I love about it is that you can get as much or as little out of it as you want, and it's really up to you. As a quarterback, I'm always in the weight or in the film room. I try to write something down every day that I'm watching at least 35 or 30 minutes of film a day, at least, and that's just the bare minimum. And like, I just have these little checklists that I go through. Did I watch enough film? Did I do some extra work today? Did I throw? And then sometimes throwing is just even grabbing a couple guys after a lift and going out on the field. And it doesn't have to be, running routes, because, especially right now when we're kind of killing our bodies, we got to be smart with the receivers a little bit, and not run them into the ground. But we try to run routes on the weekends, get in there when we can, and those guys are always on the jugs with their monarchs. And but right now, it's a lot of team building, a lot of research and development, kind of trying to work on my game, and the footwork, the mechanics of my own personal quarterbacking, because I don't want to think about that come the season. By that time, I'm only going to be worried about what the defense is doing, what we got going on offense schematically, and those mechanic things don't really matter. So this is the time to work on that now, and to get our timing right with the receivers. And I think we're doing a good job of that.
So one of the things that probably people all want to know about here is you got 5 guys in a quarterback room. That's a big room, a lot of talented players in there, with Devin, Lincoln, a couple of freshmen, obviously, as well, with Julian and Air. What is the dynamic in the relationship like? Like, how do those interactions go? Because it's a bunch of guys who are, alphas all competing, but it seems like being around that everybody has a pretty good relationship as well.
Yeah, I've been very, very impressed. Coming in, I didn't really know how it'd be received. I was in that position too. I was a guy in a room. They brought in a 5th-year, quarterback who played a lot of football, and sometimes it can be received in different ways. But I mean, the way that these guys have taken me in, and and listened to me, and taken my feedback on some things, and just kind of heard me out and helped me in ways, because Devin and Lincoln have been here longer than me, and sometimes I'm bouncing ideas off them. And but honestly, I think we are really, really tight as a room, and it speaks to the brotherhood, and it speaks to, like, just kind of the quality of the guys in the room, and how they've been able to not hold any grudges against me for coming in, because we obviously, there's one quarterback spot out there. We all want to be out there playing, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the Buckeyes are winning, and that we're winning every single day. And I think we all really understand that. And we are really tight. Like, I spend a lot of time with those guys. We really enjoy each other. We have fun together. And that just makes it so much more enjoyable. I mean, it'd be so miserable if we were, in a quarterback competition, and just, fighting all the time, and people, didn't like each other. The thing that's so cool is that we all are kind of just trying to push each other to get better, and all are raising our levels and having fun while we're doing it.
All right. So, you have mentioned this idea of being the new guy coming into the program. I've always believed that when you're younger, it's much easier to make friends. My wife's got a couple of sisters. They're 10 and 7, and they go to the park and they say, you want to get on the swings. And now all of a sudden they got a new friend. Don't even know their name. When you're a little bit older, it's a little bit of a getting to know people, period. So who have become your best friends on the team?
I think definitely the group of guys that I came in with, that I transferred in with, I became really close with, just because we were kind of all going through the same thing. Seth McLaughlin, Quinshawn, Will Kazmarek, all three of those guys I would say are I'm really tight with. And then I'd say outside of that, Devin and Lincoln, those guys are two of my best friends on the team. I spend a lot of time with them. We all live in the same apartment complex. We hang out a lot. But yeah, I think those transfer guys, we really leaned on each other, and especially when we first got here, because at least for me at Kansas State, when I went in, I kind of the group of guys that still to this day are my core group of friends are the guys that I came in with, and the class that you come in with. Obviously when you transfer, you don't have that, so you got to kind of cling to a couple people, and I feel like I'm really close with a lot of people, but honestly, those transfer guys and I did become really close, and I think leaned on each other a lot in that tough transition time.
Did we ever ask Ryan, at some point, or Coach Day, when he was recruiting you coming in through the portal, you're a guy that's from outside of Philadelphia, saw the 484 area code. Like,
Yeah.
Coach, why didn't you recruit me coming out of high school? Like, why did it take this many years to get here?
Hey, I've had that thought go through my mind. When I was going through all these guys are coming back from from the portal, at least. That there were some coaches that I remembered that like didn't give me the time of day in high school, and I was like, I'm not giving you the time of the day in the portal because I remember it, and I'm not one to hold grudges or anything, but I understood. At the time, I wasn't as much of a high recruit as I felt like I was under recruited. I think I didn't starting until my sophomore year, which set me back a little bit. And I had a decent sophomore season, but I didn't really break out until my junior year. So I just kind of got a later start on some things. And it really took me a while at K-State until I kind of felt myself again. So it was a long transition process. Obviously, yeah. I could give him a hard time and say, why didn't you recruit me in high school? But I don't blame him. I probably had a lot of growing to do before I could become a caliber of guy that could be a player here.
So speaking of growing, then you mentioned the guys you came in with and all those guys offensively, obviously a great group of weapons you have. The competition and practice that you're seeing, and Jim Knowles, a guy that, I'm not sure, I haven't looked through all your schedules, but did you get a chance to play Oklahoma State early on when you were there?
Played two times.
Yeah.
Should have beat him the first year. I ran for like 125 yards on him. We were killing him with this one gap read scheme, and I could joke about that with him, but yeah, the competition of practice is awesome. Like, going against that defense made me so much better in the spring. And Coach Knowles obviously has a great scheme. Ran it against me at Oklahoma State twice. It was a bitch. It was hard to go against. And with the caliber of players they have, you don't have to blitz anybody. You can just let that front four eat, and those guys are going to get home. It's pretty fun. And I had never experienced competition in practice like that, even in the spring. So the level is being raised around here, and it's really fun to see.
And then lastly here, we talked a little bit before you came on. It's official visit weekend here, this every weekend through June. When you were coming through, did we get any great pictures at Ohio State? Go to the picture room, with all the jerseys and everything. Is that not really your deal?
No, see, coming through the portal, I said that they asked me. I think Erin texted me. She's like, "Do you want to do the photo shoot?" And I was like, "No, I don't need to do that. I did that when I was 18 years old. I'm 22 now. I feel like I'm a little past that. So I was just like, I'll go sit down, watch some film with Coach Day, and check out the campus, and that's all for me.
It's a business approach in the portal.
Exactly. That was how I was looking at it.
Absolutely. Well, Will, we appreciate you spending some time with us, man. This has been absolutely tremendous. Get a chance to get to know you. And for a guy coming in, Buckeye Nation is so passionate about everything. So they follow all these guys in recruiting. And so the portal's a little different because you arrive here and now everyone wants to try to find out about you and, just kind of get to know it. So thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. We really appreciate it. All right.
No doubt, man. Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right. Up next, we're going to talk a little bit about those official visits, and then Mike Vrabel and his role in Cleveland. What's the former Buckeye doing up there on the lake? All that after this here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. back in on the show here, and what a great job by Will Howard and Joshua. I promised I would tell you what had happened. Um, I was running through the bags, and we are going side shuffle, and make sure you get 2 feet in the last hole before bursting off, going plus through to the line. I think I may have only hit the one and then dove out, and Trey called me out on it. He's like, "You got to come on back. We got to finish." And I wasn't the first person that had to do that. So I was like, you know what? At a moment of truth, I had to make a decision of whether I can kind of be like big time the program, or if I'm here working, like I'm gonna work like everybody else. So I did go back, went through, ran through, and then finished out the rest of the drill. But it was pretty good, man. It was 25 minutes, and my heart rate got up, and we were cruising a little bit.
Luke Fickell always used to say, when the mind goes, the body goes. So I need you to lock in a little bit better next time you're going through those bags there, Bobby.
Absolutely, I'm with you. And that's why I made that decision of, hey, I got to go back. I got to do it. Especially it was OV weekend. We got a bunch of guys coming through. I even loaned some of my stuff over to the room where people can go get some pictures in there, Joshua. They want to get some more gear. I may have put a freshman linebacker picture. They had a linebacker coming through with James Laurinaitis in there, Coach Laurinaitis. So they can see what a little 2005 James was in their world. You've been around this for a while, these official visits, the OV weekends, if you will. Your memory of yours and kind of what that was.
Yeah, we had a big group. We took ours in December, and we had a huge group of guys that were committed that went on this official visit. And it was kind of the first time we had all been together for an extended period of time. I had been to games with some of these guys and gotten to know them, but like none of us had really hung out before. And it was about what you would imagine, a little bit of a crapshoot. We certainly had a blast. There's some stories I wish I could tell that I won't tell right now. But like, I think at that time, even maybe a little bit more than right now, because this was December leading right into the February signing day. Like, a lot of guys had their decisions made. We were just trying to get to know each other, and we had an absolute blast. And it was like the first of many good times we had together.
Yeah, it was a good time. And I remember ours, we had a big group similar to yours, Joshua, where it's like 13, 14 guys. And I was maybe one of one or two that wasn't committed yet. And so there was like a full court press on me to help get that done. But that was in the winter.
So you wanted
like,
some attention? You wanted some attention
I
late in the
do.
game, Bobby?
It was really more like procrastinate the decision because I didn't want to make it. Like it was like I didn't want to make a bad. It's the first real choice you have to make as like a young adult. And it's
who was the second place team?
I don't know if there really was a second place team like that.
So you just wanted attention then?
Well, I really liked North Carolina. That was my first visit.
All right. And
going to Chapel Hill, I was like, this place is sick. Like, I want to go here. Julius Peppers was still there. Like Curry was still like, they were really good. I think they were 9-3. And it was December 1st and it was 85 degrees. So they also had that going for them. That's why now these June official visits, I'm like,
it's great to get kids in Columbus in June.
Oh, come on in. It's like 85. It's great. It's really nice. Not, hey, gosh, we walk outside and you're like, where's my coat? I'm freezing and hitting the face. So mine was like that. AJ was on it. And it's funny, like these guys are so much different today. I got in probably far more trouble than not actual trouble, but like you said, stuff that I wouldn't want my parents knowing about when I was on my visit than these guys do today. So it's a little bit different dynamic and situation. One of the guys, though, I always looked up to here when I was, a younger guy, then even when I was playing, he would always come back, and that's Mike Vrabel, Luke Fickell's. But he was actually on the staff when you were here, teammates, and then coaching together. He got fired from Tennessee this year. He got hired as a consultant, basically in Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski. In this advisor role, people said, and this is Braves, and you saw him when you were playing here. He's out there with the bags, like hands on with dudes. Like, what does an advisor actually entail if this is what you're going to be doing?
I mean, it's typical. I don't think he would want it any other way except for like, I need to get my hands dirty and I need to be around players. And I need to be around football. The other side about it is he played professionally for forever and he is a champion. And I think there's a lot of value in having a guy who's got that perspective as a player, but also has coached in the NFL, just around to bounce ideas off of and to like be around players and to talk to people on the coaching staff and in the front office. When I saw this move earlier in the offseason, I thought it was awesome. I think it's a really good way for Vrabes to be close to the game, and I think it's a really good way for Cleveland to leverage the asset that is Mike Vrabel. So I'm glad to see him out there still, getting his hands dirty, doing the thing he loves.
It's awesome because he would have it no other way. That's the only way he knows how to do it. And then also, what else is probably a little more untold about this? Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, he was my head coach in Detroit. He got fired. He went to Philadelphia. He had some health issues during COVID. And I guess when he moved back to Nashville, and he was telling me when he was up here at the coaches clinic at Ohio State that Vrabes was calling him, hey, come in the building, like just help out a little bit. We got something for you. Like just figure some things out as much as you want, but just keep on coming. And Jim goes, I credit him for getting me back into this and getting me to where I am now. And so he's now the shoe is kind of on the other foot. I'm like, buddy, this is your hometown, your home state. Get your butt up here. Come on in, coach the guys. It'll be good for me. It'll be good for you. It's going to help everybody. And so that's those great stories that you kind of hear about in coaching, it coming full circle. Not all that different than, Ryan Day hiring his former head coach and recruiter and Chip Kelly. It's such a, cyclical business that one day you may be the boss, but the next day you may be working for the guy. So always make sure that you keep those relationships tight. But coming up, we're going to do tailgate talk with questions from listeners. It's our favorite segment every week. We got some great questions this week, Joshua. So we're going to dive into that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the program, and it's Tailgate Talk. It's time we answer your questions. And I thought we might only have time for one. Want to get to a second one real quick. And there's a couple other good ones I think we'll end up pushing to next week. Before we get into a question for Ohio State, this comes from Alicia Campbell. It says, apologies, not an OSU question, but I value your opinion. What does the U need to do to return to the great program that it used to be and rival Ohio State? And I'll punt that to you, Joshua, and give you about a minute on here to see what you can do.
They got to win, first off. But I feel like we've learned this in the NIL era. A collection of talent does not make a great team. It does not make a group that plays well. And so I think they need to maybe hone in a little bit more on who they're bringing into their building. And then ultimately they got to develop those guys to play to the best of their abilities. I think we've seen year after year, they've gotten good recruiting classes. They've gotten good transfer classes. They haven't necessarily had the production on field, and they got to bridge that gap one way or another. But it doesn't feel like it's a talent issue to me. I think it's a getting guys to play well issue as I see it.
And then the final one here, and we got a lot of these in the spring. Why does Day seemingly refuse to address the O-line? Seems like a glaring issue. And I kind of responded with, what would you like him to do? And it's not sure, in my opinion, huge issue on the left side, but I think they mean right side. Transfer windows have passed, but I think you can still maybe get players out of the window. I mean, why is there nothing being done with that, in your opinion?
So I don't, I guess, what do you mean by nothing being done? Like, I don't know if, like, did you want Ryan Day to bring in like 10 offensive linemen through the portal? Are we sure that there would have been like 10 guys that would have been good enough to play at Ohio State? Could you have brought in 5 new guys that would have been ready to roll in the fall? Right? Like, those are the questions that they're asking. I think it's a question of, do we and understand offensive line is much more difficult than other positions, but do we restart the development curve on a guy that we have to bring in, multiple guys on the offensive line, or do we keep investing in the guys that are here and want to be here and want to play well? And I don't think the second approach is bad, because it's not uncommon that guys are, okay, average offensive linemen for 2 or 3 years before they become really, really good players after being coached and developed and growing into their bodies, etc. Oh, by the way, Ryan Day did bring in a transfer on the offensive line in Seth McLaughlin, so it's not like he didn't address it at all. They brought in Josh Simmons a year ago. I prefer to take it a little bit slower when it comes to that position group, just because I know from watching those guys, not everybody's ready to roll on day one. And even when they first become a starter, it might be I'm looking at Billy Price, for example. It was a couple years before he was a first-round pick caliber type of player.
Absolutely. And Simmons was really good last year. I think Seth McLaughlin's going to be good this year. you have to ask yourself, are you going to be able to go in there and get a national championship caliber offensive lineman? If the answer is no at this point, which there weren't anybody to my knowledge in there, then you lean into the development of your guys. And they were working through Tager Shabola and Luke Montgomery, flipping Josh Fryer from guard to tackle. Carson Hinsman, maybe you kick him over to guard. Like, they're trying a lot of different combinations. Just because you didn't go out and get the turnstile of offensive linemen from the
Yeah.
portal, that doesn't mean that you're not trying to find an internal solution. So I think they're close. I really trust what Justin Fry and
Me
what
too.
Chip Kelly are going to do. They do a great job developing offensive linemen, and the offense will be a little different this year. So I think they'll lean in on maybe some of the skill set of what those guys can do as well. All right, coming up, we're going to wrap up the program. We got our betting segment. Memorial Tournament coming up this weekend. Who do we like? Well, we'll talk to you about that. Brought to you by Tipico here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. What another huge show we had today. Thank you for watching, whether it's on Bally's, on YouTube, somewhere on social media. Please continue to like, subscribe, comment. We appreciate all of that. Will Howard, absolutely phenomenal today. I want to get in now to our final segment of the program, the Tipico Sportsbook. Well, they're going to change the way you bet with their new Tipico Rewards program. The more you bet, the more you earn, the more you win. You can get up to 5% cash back on your bets. Be sure to check out our big play boosts, giving you the best odds on odds, parlays across all Ohio sports. And don't forget to follow along with your favorite big play personalities on social media to lock in your bets with us all week long. Remember, must be 21 years and older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You got the Memorial this week, Joshua. Huge tournament. Got a lot of big names in the field. You've got Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele coming off a big win, Rory, Homa, Fitzpatrick, Morikawa, Justin Thomas, two-time winner Patrick Cantlay, reigning champ Victor Hovland. Anyone in there that you particularly like?
Shoffley is certainly an interesting name for me right now. I'm curious if Scheffler can get back to his winning ways. He had the little hiccup there with the police department down in Louisville. So he was on a heater that was historic.
Yep.
Tiger-like, as some people had described it. So can he get back there? Those would probably be the two names that I'm looking at the hardest.
I like Rory. I feel like this might be a good opportunity. He sets up well for the course here. And I'm going to head out there Thursday, Friday. We do my local show on the Fan out there in the morning. So excited to go out, check him out. Hopefully Rory maybe gets a win. Have you ever had one of the famous Muirfield milkshakes, Joshua?
I've not. That's not something I have had. I've been out there a million times. I've had a million transfusions. It's one of my favorite drinks to have out there on the golf course, but never the milkshake.
Yeah, it's they're pretty good. I'm gonna be honest. They bring them out. I'm with my guy Brandon Beam, and he used to
Oh, yeah.
caddy out there, so we get first class treatment. They bring us breakfast. They bring us the milkshakes. Like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I've lived and eaten a full day's worth already, and they're just gonna like roll me around. So then I've got to find the nearest transfusion bar and just get loaded up
Yep.
and watch some of the wonderful golf that's going to be played. Reflog, one of our guys, a big play, wanted to ask where you're watching the tourney, Josh. Would you watch it from the course, or would a guy like you watch it from Urban's house? We know you're in the all-time favorite category.
I'm actually going to be hanging out with Urban over the weekend. We're going to be
Oh.
guest bartending at a pint house there. So that's going to be a little bit of fun. I've got a buddy who lives out there on the course, so I like to hang out with him.
That's tremendous. We love it, Joshua. Check out Urban and Joshua at the Pine House, and make sure you check out our show next week here, the Bobby Carpenter Show.